Okay, we are live. We'll see if people start joining. I actually can't see if they join, and you guys are muted. But welcome if you're joining right now. Good to have you this afternoon, or no, some of you have been in the afternoon, some of it's in the morning, so right at the lunch hour.
Justin, you can see under participants that people are, and then it does another screen on
Gotcha. We've got 7 attendees. Welcome, Ellen, Amy Profont, Joe Whitaker, Derek Harris. We've got Marie Wicks, Nathaniel Hudson, Pam Seifert. Good to see you. Welcome. Glad to have you guys with us this afternoon. We're going to wait just a little bit more and see how many attendees we get because we had about 40 RSVPs. So we're going to wait just a minute or so more and then we'll get started. So thank you for your patience. And good to have you at the CTE Institute. And thank you, Julie, for pointing that out. Matt Spinella's on. Welcome, Matt. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, thanks for the text, Amy. I am trying to work the room. It's hard when you can't hear from you guys. This is a different kind of format. When they originally said this was all going to be over Zoom, I expected a huge window of people to join in, and that's not happening today. But good to have you guys with us. All right. Well, we're going to get started. There's some other people who are supposed to come today, but they're not here. But glad to have you guys with us. We're excited to tell you about promising practices in cross-sector partnerships, and specifically give you guys, an example from West Tennessee and some East Tennessee examples, because we have West Tennessee and East Tennessee people. Sorry, Middle Tennessee, you guys do a good job, but we left you out today, so we do apologize about that. But West is best and East is pretty good too. So we're gonna talk you through this, and hopefully, if you have questions, we want you to hold them to the end, and we just feel like that'll be easier to get things flowing through this presentation and to get through it. And we'll get to the agenda right now. I do want to introduce our co-presenters for the day who've joined us from West and East Tennessee. I'd first like to introduce our special guest from the Milan, Tennessee Chamber of Commerce, the Executive Director, Julie Allen Ward, and she's also Chairman of the Gibson County Workforce Committee, which we're going to be talking about today in the middle of the presentation. I'd like to introduce Mary Beth Oxendine Woodby. She is from Northeast, and she works with Tennessee Pathways. She's a regional coordinator like myself in Northwest Tennessee. And then Lori Burdine is our Southwest Regional Coordinator with Tennessee Pathways. So got to click here. There's our title slide. And here's our agenda for the today. So welcome again. Glad to have you join us for this great discussion on the work that's going on in the state. And we hope that some of your districts and your partners can take some of these promising practices back to their regions, their schools, their districts, and to really use those effectively as we move forward. So we're going to talk about Tennessee Pathways because we do have three regional coordinators on. We're going to explore what makes an effective partnership. We're going to talk about Gibson County's best practice model that we feel like you could use anywhere in the state. And then we're going to talk about some steps for creating cross-sector partnerships that really are essential in creating networks that can tackle big responsibilities. So I'm going to turn it over to Lori Burdine. Again, we are excited to have you guys, and we would love for you to comment in the original chat page and ask any questions that you have, and just let us know, if you need more information. So Lori, thank you so much. You're kicking it off with the TBR and TDOE partnership with Tennessee Pathways.
Great. Thanks, Justin. And thank you everyone for joining us this morning. As Justin mentioned, we are the regional coordinators for Tennessee Pathways. Pathways is the K-12 initiative under Tennessee's Drive to 55. The Drive to 55 was created to ensure that at least 55% of our Tennesseans have a college degree or some post-secondary credit by 2025, which will provide our Tennesseans more access to in-demand career opportunities in their communities. Tennessee Pathways supports the alignment among K-12, post-secondary, and industry to connect students to relevant education and training. There are 9 of us across the state in each economic development region, and we support your work in ensuring students have access to quality experiences while earning certificates, credentials, and degrees. And Tennessee Pathways is a partnership between the Tennessee Department of Education and TBR. Our Pathways work is structured around 3 key elements: high quality college and career advisement, K through 12, rigorous early post-secondary opportunities, and work-based learning in high school. And what we're focusing on in this session is our seamless vertical alignment between K-12 post-secondary employers as a result of effective cross-sector partnerships. Today, we are discussing how to develop effective partnerships through showcasing best practice in Gibson County and by learning some strategies for leveraging these partnerships to ensure that students do have access to those high-quality learning experiences. In thinking about the partnerships that you currently have, you're immediately going to recognize that some are great and very strong, and some are not so strong. They're not the partnerships that really are effective for you. And we're going to try the chat feature, and I'm going to ask for a little bit of help from Mary Beth. So think about some of those partnerships that you have that are not very effective, your least effective partnerships. And if you would just type a word or a phrase in the chat box about what you think about those partnerships or why they're not as effective. So hopefully you're typing in right now. And Mary Beth, if you don't mind, shout out some for me, or I'm going to ask my partners to shout out some for me.
And I am waiting to see, of course, just a reminder, the chat feature that we're using is in the CTE Institute web portal under our session name for promising practices for cross-sector partnerships.
Well, tell you what, if you all still haven't had coffee, we'll just move on and talk about some of those, what makes partnerships transformational, transactional. So we can move forward on this, Justin. So
Lori, we have some.
Great.
I think it just took a minute for them to pop up. Might have locked it for a minute. So vocabulary barriers, silos, and then a hope for this session is to get ideas on bringing on partners. So thank you all for that. And if you've got some more, we'd love to see your thoughts.
Oh, for sure. And some of your comments are right on and spot on. So many of you do experience partnerships that are more transactional than transformational. And by transactional, we really mean that the relationship, it may be new and therefore it's uncomfortable. It may be a little bit older and still uncomfortable. You do work in silos. For example, educators are focusing on standards in teaching. Workforce development is focused on activities that are required by legislation, and employers are focusing on getting their product out or providing services for their customers, everyone working on their own thing at their own time. You might be connecting, you do some things together, but you're not collaborating. You just make that one-on-one give and take, maybe a guest speaker showing up, doing their thing, and not truly engaging. Impactful partnerships, though, begin to develop when these silos are eliminated. And all stakeholders were realizing that to be the most effective, their efforts must overlap to create that true interwoven community development system. On the other hand, when we're talking about effective partnerships, they are more transformational, and transformational partnerships stem from that shared belief that you can achieve more by working together. These partnerships are better able to shift work in a broader sense because they're not about a quid pro quo approach. There's a common purpose. Besides being mutually beneficial, being open to change and improvement facilitates collaborations and helps all partners initiate larger structural changes that help them achieve that common mission. Our best practice today does focus on these cross-sector partnerships that were developed in Gibson County in West Tennessee. Their Workforce Development Committee brought many, many stakeholders together, working together to achieve a common goal to develop that future workforce. They did this by creating opportunities for K through 12 students to become more aware of industries in their area, and by allowing them to explore and prepare and train in in-demand occupations. And at this point, we are going to be hearing from Julie Ellen Ward from the Milan Chamber. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to say before Julie begins that I started this work with Tennessee Pathways about 3 years ago, and I was meeting with the superintendent at Bradford Special School District in Gibson County, and he said, "You got to go see Julie. What you're talking about, that's her lane, and she's going to be able to steer you in the right direction." And they've adopted me into this work as part of their family, and I'm so appreciative of you and for you taking the time to join us today. I do want to ask you a question to kind of kick this off and tee it up, since you like to play golf. What sparked the development of this cross-sector committee? Where did the genesis of it come from?
So I've been here for 10 years, but this started before me. Actually, in 2009, our Gibson County commission, our commissioners, decided that workforce development would be our #1 initiative in the county of Gibson. So from there, roundtables began in 5 sectors, which were business, industry, education, healthcare, and agriculture. And if you want to go to the next slide, it talks about all of our partners that we engage. So we have 10 local governments plus a county government. I know there are a couple of people on here. I want to say Christy Bennett is on our thing today. And she's one of our partners in the Department of Labor. And then Helen Branham from one of our school districts in Trenton is on here today. So thank y'all for joining us. But we are very diverse. We have 5 school districts, 6 high schools, which many of you other places have many more high schools, but they're all in the same district. So hopefully that may be a little easier for you. We engage people from our state, federal, economic development partners, our chambers, higher education, from community, technical college, community college to 4-year institutions, our development districts, our workforce board, our pathways folks. Thank you, Justin. And I saw Hollywood was on here too. She has been to some of our meetings as well. And our Gibson County, we have a Tennessee Promise coordinator that works with our students. In industry, and last but certainly not least, we engage the input of our students. So it's very diverse. I will say that we are lucky that the people that have been involved in this committee, a lot of them have been involved many, many years. It has helped that we have had the same county mayor the entire time, but I tell you what is really great. We know there's a lot of turnover in a lot of industries, and at least the person who replaces the position has also continued to be involved from the entity of the stakeholder. So that's been great. This
Julie,
is our May.
I think that's a good segue. Yeah, you were already doing that, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the initiatives that have emerged from this committee, and you were going that route, so I'm going to let you
Yeah.
keep going.
Okay, great. So this is a picture of our mayor, Tom Witherspoon, and he, as well as several other of us, went to a Ready by 21 conference in Middle Tennessee several years ago. And one of the things, the most important thing that we learned was that you cannot make policy for youth without engaging youth input. So he formed a mayor's youth council, and we meet with those kids a couple of times a year, and we ask them a questionnaire right off the beginning that, can you pursue what you want to do in life in Gibson County? If not, what do you need to do that? What do you like more or less about your city? Concerns that you have. And we have heard concerns from kids from drug issues to kids in alternative school, disrupting, regular path, and just it's recycling. I mean, it's been so interesting to hear from these kids through the years and how their views of things have changed. So No Excuses Tour is on here, which was something that the mayor really felt from the youth council, that we would go into the schools and we would send a message. And at first our message was more appealed towards their materialistic side. What level of education do you have to attain to buy and do the things you want to do in life? So it was fancy cars and big houses, and what the alternative was, driving at some sort of vehicle that was horse-drawn and had no, I mean, it was just crazy. So it was funny, and now we gear that presentation more towards the middle school kids. Because in youth council, we found that there was a more and more growing issue with drugs and the opioid crisis and drugs in the schools. So now it's a more poignant, I would say, presentation that really focuses on the small decisions that you make in life can equal very big results, and which path you take on that. So now with the opioid crisis, we've geared that more towards that. Next slide. Another initiative that has come from this is actually the Gibson County Jumpstart Scholarship. We did not imagine this initiative on our own. We did a lot of research with people around our area. And actually, if there's anybody out there in Dyer County watching us today, most of the things that we modeled our scholarship after was from the Dyer County Promise. And up to this date, we have awarded 500 students $250. And what you have to learn when you are establishing a scholarship is where the funding is going to come from. We ask the county commission to fund it. And you also have to be sure and let the folks at the institutions know that that money can be used for whatever. If all their school is paid for, then they can use this money for books and they can use this money for gas. We wanted it to not have too many stipulations on it, and also be something that we as a committee, a volunteer committee pretty much, can still facilitate and implement. So go to the next one. Okay, so some more initiatives. We started from the very beginning partnering with our annual manufacturing day or National Manufacturing Day, which is in October. So Gibson County has 2 other days, sometime in October, depending on fall break schedules and things, that we go into. We take a group from every school and we go into the facilities and really partner with that, make it a big deal. ACT Work Ready Community was something we partnered with our Northwest Tennessee Workforce Board. They helped us get certified for that. That's something we are very proud of because Gibson County is the largest county in Northwest Tennessee. So we had, and the smallest county may have had to have like 12 different certifications. We had to have 750. So it was more of an undertaking for our community, and we could not have done it without our workforce board partners. The work ethics certificate, many of you probably already know about this. If you do not, we are glad to share information on that. But that is a statewide program that has been adopted by the Department of Education, and it was modeled after our own Gibson County Way to Win at Work program. So we're very proud of that. They took it and they tweaked it, and it became a state program. So there we are with our Way to Win at Work, some people from our committee. Can you point, Justin, to Karen? That's Amanda. Yeah. So Karen Larson is pictured there beside me, and she is actually the author of this course. And she works for Tennessee College of Applied Technology in Jackson. And they have been our partner from the very beginning. So Karen wrote a course called The Way to Win at Work. And it covers 6 modules having to do with employer expectations, attendance and time management, applications and interviews, impressions and perceptions, and teamwork. And what we love about this course is that it gives every student in all of our school systems post-secondary credit and experience with an online course. And the reason the modules are the ones that they are is because with our roundtables back in 2009 and 10, overwhelmingly response was the need for soft skills. And so we felt like we needed to implement something in our schools. We actually started off trying to implement it in the job center, and that was not successful. So there were things that we have started and kind of changed gears with, but this is our shining star in our program. And along with we offer seminars a couple of times a year based on what industry and the workforce are wanting to hear. So here's kind of our wrap-up slide that shows you that since 2011, basically 2009 and 10, we have engaged over 13,000 students and almost 400 community leaders. So our committee of 20 to 30 people, I would say, are very dedicated in meeting monthly, and the stakeholders that we have engaged are in. And we could not have done this without the 2 most important things, I believe, in this program that we have done. We could not have done it without the support of the county government, and we could not have done it without the partnership with the school superintendents. Because from the school superintendents, everything filters down. We do have CTE and counselors that serve on our committee, as well as the higher education folks. But to implement anything in your school system, we have 5 school superintendents, but we have 1 that comes regularly to the meetings and is our liaison to the other superintendents. And without those 2 factors and the dedication of all the partners that are involved, it's been a 10-year undertaking. So this is not something that's going to happen overnight, but we're glad to share our model anytime. And I guess I'll take questions now, or are we doing that at the end?
We're going to wait till the end.
Okay.
We're going to turn it over to Mary Beth to talk about, trying to get one of these committees started and creating cross sector partnerships. Kind of step one, step two, step three. Some easy low hanging fruit that you can do in your communities if you're looking to do something similar.
Thanks, Justin, and thank you, Julie. That was a great discussion, and it sounds like you all are doing some wonderful work there in West Tennessee. I feel like I'm in Northeast Tennessee, and I have a wonderful network of partners here as well. I feel like in Northeast Tennessee, one of the things we do really well is partnerships. And so I'm excited to talk to you all about some of the strategies that we've used in Northeast, but also some of the strategies that were also used in West Tennessee in developing their cross-sector council that has been so successful. But in Northeast, we have also, we haven't necessarily used a council platform per se, but we have utilized our partnerships to leverage different community stakeholders and have some really strong successes. We also have local scholarships for dual enrollment in multiple counties in our region. We also have a work ethic diploma that we implement in Northeast, and all of our counties and even some in the East region are using that. And it's very similar to what Julie mentioned in her discussion. And then we are also participating in the ACT Work Ready's community program. And so we have several counties within the Northeast region that are certified Work Ready communities. And then our goal is to become a Work Ready region. And so all of these efforts, just as Julie demonstrated through her discussion, take really strong partnerships. And so what we want to do is try to simplify the process of building these partnerships to make it a little bit more digestible and a little bit easier to implement across any county within, statewide, within the state of Tennessee. And so we're going to start with step one, which is to identify and seek out partners. And on this slide, we have a list of stakeholder groups that you will probably want to consider looking at in terms of partnerships. If you're not already plugged in with these groups, you will definitely want to look at outlets to be introduced with these individuals, to connect with them. And one of the first steps that we recommend as you work on building your network is to partner with your Tennessee Pathways Regional Coordinator. So those of us that are in the Tennessee Pathways roles across the state, we can serve as connectors for you within the school system. And so we can introduce you to the head of the chamber or the head of the workforce board or various employers in the area that you might want to try to partner with. And so that can be one of the first steps as you work on a networking plan, is to reach out to your regional coordinator, and then the ball will start rolling from that point. We can introduce you to some key individuals, and then those individuals will introduce you further. And so your network will then grow exponentially from that point. Next slide, please. So our step two is going to be cultivating professional relationships. And so with step one, we were primarily just identifying who you might want to reach out to. But then step two is where you really want to jump in and make some acquaintances, get some introductions made, call some meetings, and really get some momentum moving around your network development. And so our first bullet is to intentionally set aside time to cultivate and partner or foster partnerships beyond required activities. And so you want to keep in mind that just with any relationship building, it takes time. You want to get to know your individual partners in your community, and they want to get to know you. So you can share what you do, find out what they do, see where there's some overlap, and that can be sort of the building block to then move forward. And then it's also important to remember to consistently foster relationships and be always strengthening your partnerships. You don't want to wait until you need a partner to try to build partnerships. It'll be too late at that point. So you want to always be trying to foster those relationships and periodically check on people, shoot them an email and just say, hey, you know, how are things going in your world? Is there anything that we can work on? Just those periodic ways to stay in touch will really go a long way. And then, as I mentioned, once you have a few key partners, then you can leverage those partners to gain even more. Now, remember that step 2 is going to take a significant amount of time. And Julie alluded to this in her discussion. It doesn't happen overnight. You know, theirs was like a 10-year development into some of their successes and building their strong partnerships. And so it takes time, and through this step 2 is where you're going to start to build some trust with your partners. And that's where your partners are really going to be able to decide whether they want to partner with you. And so it's important to remember that you also want to be a good partner, and you know, look at ways that you can work in a reciprocal way and kind of a give and take. What can they do for you, but what can you also do for them? And once they see that you're dependable and you do what you say you're going to do, that's when those partnerships can really become strong, and you can have some really good successes come out of these. All right, we'll go to the next slide. So also within step 2, we created a tool for all of you to use, and you can access a blank version of this professional networking template in the files section of the CTE Institute for our particular session. And so there will be a completely blank session of this form, but we have worked up an example of this professional networking worksheet that is essentially a tool to help you get started in planning how you're going to build your network. And it really helps you to think through some of the key pieces and helps you to articulate what you want to ask of your partners and how you can potentially utilize them to benefit your students. But one of the first things that you want to do before you sit down to even begin working on this networking template is pull out your CLNA, your Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment. That can be a really great tool to look at in combination with this networking tool, because you will be able to see potential programs of study that might need additional work-based learning partners, or might need a greater advisory board, those kinds of things. So it will help you identify potential gaps and places where you might want to focus, and that will help to drive your networking plan and prioritize who you might want to reach out to first and that sort of thing. But once you have your CLNA on hand and you're ready to jump into this, the first step is to identify some networking goals. And you may have one goal, or you might have 5 goals. On the sheet here, for our example, we have a spot for 3 goals. And so these are just some examples. And so those are establish an advisory board for a new aviation program of study. Goal 2, develop work-based learning opportunities for students in the aviation program. And then goal 3, establish early post-secondary opportunities, or EPSOs, for students in the aviation program. And so then what you'll do is jump down to the matrix And then you can list individuals that you would want to reach out to in your network building that can help address these different goals. And so I'm going to just look at the first row. And so as we look at the first column in row 1, we have space for our contact name and the organization that they work for. And so we've got Jane Jones, president of the Chamber of Commerce, and that's there again a great initial contact that can be a wonderful connector for you. And then the next column lets you align which or determine which goals this particular contact is aligned to. So in this particular case, the head of the Chamber of Commerce can potentially assist with goals 1 and 2 that you have set up. And then the third column is, what is the specific ask that I should make of this contact? And this is one of the pieces that I love about this tool, is that it lets you document what you want from this partner. How can you use this partner? And what do you want to ask of them? And so rather than call a meeting and not be really sure what you want to do with this and you know, potentially jumble up the conversation and not get your point across, you can write down the specific ask that you want to make, and then you'll be much more likely to be able to articulate that ask in a very clear and concise way when you meet with that individual one-on-one, or if you're in a meeting. And then the next column lets you document what you can offer to that partner in return. So there again, we're looking at ways that we can be reciprocal and have a mutually beneficial partnership. And so in this particular case, we can provide periodic updates regarding the aviation program. And so I can share with the head of the chamber what's going on with our aviation program, and then she can potentially connect me with various stakeholders for my advisory board and for work-based learning. And so we both have our particular asks in place, so to speak, and ways that we're going to help each other. And then you also have a spot for comments. And so in this particular example, Jane, the head of the Chamber of Commerce, was able to connect me with a company that offers work in aviation, and then also connect me to the Workforce Board. And so you can see how things sort of build. Once you make a really strong connection, you can articulate what you know, how you want to partner with that person, and then things will build from that point. But as I mentioned, this sheet is accessible to you in blank form, and then you can always refer back to this slide in the slide deck for an example if you want to work off of that. And then step 3 is where we will head next. And so this is where we're going to identify and work towards common goals. And so this is where we start to get into the territory of the transformational partnerships that Lori discussed earlier at the start of the presentation. And we usually only get to this step after we have built a strong relationship and partnership and really developed some trust amongst each other. But once we have gotten to that point, then we can begin really digging into our barriers and goals. So what are my barriers and goals? And then what are my partner's barriers and goals? And have conversations where you share this information amongst each other, and then begin to develop a collective plan to tackle specific issues. So for example, Julie mentioned that soft skills was a problem or like a trouble area that they had noticed across various stakeholder groups, and that's relevant, you know, across you know, workforce development, education, employers. And so that is a potential issue that all groups can jump in and partner on, and then everybody, it's going to be a win-win for everybody. And so you want to look for ways that you can align your needs and your efforts around your challenges and the goals, and so that all of your work is mutually beneficial, and you have a plan of action that, you know, has a common mission, and you're all in together. And then it is important to keep in mind that as you build various committees or as you work on projects, to be mindful of your partner's time and make sure that all meetings are essential to the task, or all meetings are essential to the mission, and all tasks are essential to the mission. And so, in other words, you're not meeting just to be meeting. You want to make sure that everything you're doing is really, really meaningful to your work, and that you're very mindful of others' time and other projects that they might have going on simultaneously. And then you can always seek out ways to make your partners feel valued. We all want to know that our contributions are appreciated and valued by others, and see what that impact has been on others, especially, you know, in this case, students. And so I highly recommend that as you develop your partners and you get to working on different projects, try to find ways to show appreciation to those partners. So, for example, you might have a luncheon for work-based learning partners and showcase some of the successes, the successful partnerships between students and local employers. Or you might give a little token gift to different stakeholders that participate in Manufacturing Day or a career fair at your school. But just little tokens of appreciation can go a really long way, just to show, you know, hey, we're happy you're here and we're happy that you're a partner. And then the last thing that we've got to cover is just a little bit of information on how can we build our network in the midst of COVID-19. We all know and recognize that the last 4 months has been quite different, and we've all been trying to adapt and adjust and find new ways of doing things. And so we can certainly do that with our network building as well. And so, you know, a lot, like when you initially think about networking through a pandemic, it seems, well, that could be really difficult. You know, there are fewer meetings, there are a lot of projects that are on hold, people aren't wanting to get out and meet face to face. But in the midst of that, I'm sure many of you have realized there are a lot of virtual tools out there that help us to continue our work, and we've had to learn and adapt to these. If you reach out to an individual and they're not comfortable meeting face to face, or maybe you're not comfortable meeting face to face, I recommend looking at a virtual meeting option such as Zoom or Skype, Microsoft Teams. There's all sorts of different options for that. And then if you do decide to do a virtual meeting, we highly recommend that you leave your video on so that it's more like an actual meeting and you can really feel that engagement. And so that's one way to sort of mimic an in-person meeting. And then you can also try to honor people's want and need for distance by trying to consolidate meetings as much as possible. So for example, you might look to see how you can piggyback on other meetings that are already going on. So for example, there might be a monthly workforce board meeting that you know takes place on a particular day at a particular time, and you can try to schedule a meeting right after that. So, you know, all those stakeholders are going to be, you know, at their computer and ready to go, and, you know, hopefully free to attend your meeting as well. And so that can help with the scheduling of things. And then you can also consider using LinkedIn, which is a professional social networking website, to identify and connect with individuals. And so this can be a really great tool to kind of determine who's who within your community. You can find plant managers, you can find heads of chambers, you can connect with them online through the LinkedIn features. And then you can also potentially use their messaging features to go ahead and schedule that first in-person or virtual meeting, whichever you decide. But we hope that these tips have helped you, and we have got our contact information rolling on the screen now, and we've got a couple of minutes that we can take questions. If you want to type those in the chat, we will be happy to address those, or if you've got best practices from your area, we'd love to share those too.
Okay, we do have a couple of requests and a couple of questions. Julie, there's someone from a large district, the Metro Nashville Public Schools. Do you think that your approach could work on a cluster level, on a specific cluster?
Yes, I do. If you want to contact me directly, we can have that conversation. My email is right there, or you can call me, and I'm glad to help kind of flesh that out with you. But yes, I do. I just think it needs a little brainstorming.
Yeah. There's a lot of folks that really are impressed with the Way to Win course. And so a couple of people have asked if that is something that you can share. Is that shareable either here or in some way by contacting you? And also the questionnaire, I believe that was the questionnaire that you provided in the Mayor's Youth Council. Is that something that you would be able to share?
Yes, did y'all say that we could upload some information for the people who have attended this session? I can upload the questionnaire and also the contact information for Karen at TCAT Jackson that can let you take a look at that curriculum online. But yeah, happy to do that. And if you want to email me directly, or we can upload those two things on the portal. Okay,
great. That is all of the questions. It seems like we're right on time at 12:15. So I would like to thank everybody. We will make sure that we get those a couple of things, the questionnaire as well as the contact information for Karen Larson uploaded. So thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining in today. Greatly appreciate you taking your time around lunch hour to join us. So thanks to our co-host too. You guys did great.
Thank y'all, and y'all feel free to contact me anytime, any of the participants.